Okay. Welcome, everybody. You know what it is. It's Thursday Night Podcast with Shemsu-t. Patiently waiting for nothing. Well, this week, I've been patiently waiting for some good Chicago weather. I think we had a sneak peek. Did anybody else get that sneak peek preview? And then it started raining? Yeah, I know, right? So, anyway, tonight though, we are so excited because we will be speaking with a very dear friend of mine of many years. I love when I get my old school friends on here with me so we can, talk about it because my people are deep, all right? But tonight, we are talking about a very specific topic that actually has a little bit of depth to it because all of us are looking at this conversation. The conversation is identity. Like, who are you anyway? I mean, do you really know? We talk about the DNA and we talk about the history. We talk about our ancestors. Do you know your ancestors? Do you know the history of your ancestors? Does it even matter? How do you live your life? Do you live it based on your ancestors? Well, I love my girl's story. So I'm going to introduce you to Leilani Garrett. Hey, Lay.
Hey, how you doing, Moot?
And wonderful, my beautiful sister Queen. I just love that we have this time together.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here too. And before we get deep into our conversation, can you please give my audience a little bit of history about you? You can even talk about how we met, when we met, all that stuff, just so they can know how we vibe. So, yeah,
Mhm.
tell us
Yeah,
about you.
yeah. So my name's Leilani Garrett. I've been in Chicago. Live in Evanston now. I've been in and around Chicagoland since I want to say 85. So it's been a whole lot of years. And I met you, Moot. Actually, did not know that you were really, really dear friends with a very dear friend of mine, but we met in a work situation.
Yeah,
I worked at IBM and you were an IBM partner,
yeah.
teaching and training all about technology. And so we happened upon each other one day and the light came on, just like we was like, oh, I don't know her, but she's cool. And so we had a really lovely vibe and then learned that you were really great friends with a great friend of mine. As a matter of fact, and I'll just tell the people, we all just got back from Jamaica.
Girl, you gonna bring up Jamaica? Oh my goodness! You know
Yes.
what we
Oh
did in Jamaica stays in Jamaica. Let's just say that, okay?
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about what we did in Jamaica. We just saying we was in Jamaica and we had a beautiful time. And you know, the memories will live on and on and on. And
And we
so
will be going back soon because the memories were delicious.
oh yeah, we will be going back. That is a given. So yeah, so and then I figured out that you knew a friend of mine and we got together. And so since then, off and on, we've seen each other and chatted, and always just a beautiful communion when we come together.
Yes, that's that beautiful energy of those earth signs, right? Because you're Taurus, I believe, right?
Yes.
And I'm Capricorn, and just for some reason we come in a room and it's just a nice little loving vibe.
It is. I love me some Capricorns.
Yes, yes, yes. And my Tauruses, although if anybody can keep me straight, and you already know, our friend keep me straight, right?
Yes,
Taurus.
yes.
And my son, who's a Taurus too.
And my son, who's a Capricorn.
Oh, come on. Thank you,
Yes.
universe. I love
Mhm.
that. Because we all need that. We all need that. So now, let us go ahead and begin talking about this identity.
Mhm.
Now, I think the way we want to start is to first just maybe give a definition. Tell people how you're defining identity. It doesn't have to be in agreement with everyone else, okay? It's your definition because this is your conversation, and we're open to you teaching us something. So please have at it.
Yeah, I mean, identity is such an interesting concept, really, for lack of a better word. And I have looked it up, and I do want to give the official quote unquote definition. It doesn't mean that it applies that way to everyone, and it doesn't mean that everyone will look at identity in this way. But Webster and others of that ilk have defined identity as encompassing the memories, experiences, relationships, and values that create one's sense of self. So it's all these things that create a steady sense of who we are over time. Even as, and I think this is interesting, new facets are developed and incorporated into our identity. So identity is not something that's necessarily stable. It's really a fluid concept.
Yeah, that's what I was listening for because the memories from childhood become different at teenage, middle age, adult. You know what I'm saying? It keeps changing. And I keep
Absolutely.
growing from that.
Yes. Yes. You remember things differently as you age, or you pull some interesting information out of that memory that you may not have ever considered before that may, in fact, impact who you think you are.
Oh, Lay, that's really good because just this week, my niece was on Facebook with me and I said something about graduating from high school. And in my mind, no one in my family showed up. And she said, Auntie, I remember being a little girl and me and my mama came to your graduation. I said, huh? Wait a minute. I said, we gotta talk about this because I know that I've carried that story, you know.
Told the story at the dinner table in Jamaica.
Okay.
Yes, that no one had come to your graduation.
And so it turned out that no, they didn't come, but still I was willing to give it up. You know what
Yes,
I'm saying? I really was willing to give it up. But that made me realize that I could let go of that story though, because it really doesn't have anything to do with who I am. Right.
right.
But you know, when she did that, I started looking. Well, maybe I got it all wrong. But see how that identity is. No one supports me. I'm like boo
Mhm.
hoo. You know, get
Right.
here. Right. So that's great, Lay. I love that. Okay, keep going.
All right. Well, so I got interested in identity. I want to say, I mean, really of late in the last couple of years. But when I was a little girl, I was told that I was adopted, and it didn't really impact me. At least I don't have a memory of it impacted. I have the memory of the moment. I remember hearing the story, and my parents sat me down. They said, we wanted a child so bad, and I had a couple miscarriages, and we couldn't have a baby, and so then they told the story, and I was like, well, okay. I think I was 8, and I was like, okay. And I remember going out the door and riding my bike, and it made no. I
Did
remember
you
going
know?
right
Did
on.
you even know what adoption meant at that age?
Well, they explained it to me, which
Okay.
was, I'm not the mother who birthed you. Someone else had you, and then we went and got you from. I don't think she called it an orphanage, but she called it something, and brought you home to love you and raise you, et cetera, because your mother couldn't do it or didn't do it. I don't remember exactly what she said. So she explained to me what it was, but I think I already knew that it meant that they weren't my parents of birth.
Yes, they weren't your biological parents, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. So I think well, when the another memory that I have that made me wonder who I was I was watching one of our really great storytellers, Spike Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a movie, and I know you've seen it probably more than once, called Jungle Fever.
Yeah.
And we've all seen it, or many of us have. And there was a scene where there was a woman who worked in the fancy store like Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's, or what used to be Barney's. And she had an encounter with someone on the floor, I believe. And she was a mixed race. You could tell she had the long flowing hair, and she was light skinned, but she obviously had some Black ancestry as well. And she had some sort of encounter on the floor, and the gentleman who was talking to her, and I use the word gentleman kind of loosely, said some pretty negative things to her about her skin tone and her hair and the shape of her body, et cetera. And she ran into the back room where they, keep the stock, and where they have their lunch and all that. And she just sat there and cried.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in the movie going, oh my God, that has happened to me. That had happened to me in my lifetime when I was a child. People would tease me because you got nappy hair, but look how light your skin is. And all these things went on. And so I really related to the pain and anguish that she was experiencing in that moment. And I hadn't realized that it had impacted me so much until I saw her actually live it for me, really, and kind of through me. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting that, you can have an experience, but until you actually see it outside of yourself, you
Yeah.
don't get a clear identity of what that experience is for you.
Right. Yeah.
Great. Yes.
Yeah. I don't think it ever affected me as negatively as it did in that moment, because I saw everything that I had experienced in a different light. I had maybe not paid attention to it or had blocked it out or said it was okay, but I felt it in that moment. And I knew that it had happened to me numerous times.
Yeah, and so that gave you a little bit more to process because now you had to go back and look and see and actually probably relive some of those incidents.
Yes, certainly. And it made me sort of wonder because of the questions about, well, what are you? I mean, there was a guy in college. I remember this too. And this reminded me seeing her, and he didn't say anything really negative, but it reminded me of this incident as well. I was in college, my dorm room was open, and I was ironing. And a guy walked by, he was a black guy, and he walked by and then he came back. And he stopped in the door and he started talking to me. And I had met him, it was early in college. So maybe we had been there a week or 2 weeks, when it first starts and you don't really know everybody, but you see people on the quad or what have you. And he poked his head in and I said hi to him. We started chatting for a minute and we probably spoke for a couple of minutes, and he stopped and he said, "So are you white or what?"
I'm sorry. Wait, did you have your locks then? Did you have locks then?
Oh, no. I had in high school, I had an afro. I had an afro. So
Wow.
I mean, it was big. It was like Angela Davis. And that's why I kind of looked at him like, and he was a brother. And I'm like, you don't know what I am? How could you not know? I mean, I might expect. So that was an incident where I was like, wow, and it made me think, well, what am I? And I mean, I grew up with a Black family in a Black neighborhood. My experiences of a Black girl and a Black woman with a Black family, period. That's my experience. And that had been my experience to that point, and certainly to this point as well. But the story has shifted over the years, for sure.
Right. So now, did you ever have the experience when you were growing up that you were teased or that your color of your skin was actually accentuated compared to other Black children?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
Talk to me about that a little bit.
that was a pretty regular occurrence. You look like a white girl, you a white girl. And then as I became like more of a teenager and not necessarily curvy, still not, but certainly not curvy at that time.
But you still look good in a bikini.
Thank you. I'll take it.
Okay, come on.
I will take that.
Right.
Yeah, but so my body parts were discussed about not being like a Black girl when I
Wow.
was a teenager. Yeah. Yeah. Top and bottom, the whole smash.
Oh, that's deep. I mean, isn't that interesting? So you had this whole conversation, not only about your identity of who I am in the conversation of color, but like your body doesn't fit. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like this is, oh, Leilani.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you know.
I know. I'm grateful that I know that none of that stopped you from being the bright light that you are. I'm grateful for that.
Me too. Me
Yeah,
too.
but just the
I
fact,
do think that, probably there are folks that it has impacted like super negatively, and maybe they're still struggling to figure out who they are. I'm grateful that, I just sort of went with my own light, my own space, my own sense of self over time. And it's like, this is who I am, whatever that is. And I mean, I can't tell you, oh, I'm this, and this in terms of like some sort of biological definition, but I know who Leilani is.
yes, yes. And then now, is that what had you get interested in really going deeper into searching for
Mhm.
yourself, like as far as like who am I really?
Yeah, so what happened is, I think it was 2018, my son gave me an ancestry kit.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gave it to me for either my birthday or Christmas. So I took the test, I sent it in, and the results came back. And I looked through the results and I was like, well, this is interesting. And I don't remember the exact results. And I don't have the other ones because it's iterative, it changes over time based on the research that they continue to do about where people come from and so on.
Yes, yes.
So back then, and I remember doing the math, there was some German, there was Scotland, there was England, there was Nigeria,
There was Norwegian. Did you
there
see?
was no Danish and Norwegian, yes. And I was like, wow. But I did the math because I'm a Black girl and I wanted to
Right,
know like how much of what I was.
right.
And I think it was like 47, 48% Northern European. And then the rest were all African countries, Mali, Benin, some others. Nigeria was the most significant one. I think at the time it was like 14% or something. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm more one thing than the other, and I was comfortable with that. I mean, clearly, I knew I had a lot of Caucasian or white, whatever you call it.
But you got that melanin deep in there too. That's right.
Yes, yes, yes. So he gave me that, so I saw that, and I thought that was interesting. And then I started thinking, well, there's two pieces of identity: the nurture, which is the people who raised me,
Yeah.
and the environment and all those things. And then there's the nature, which is, ostensibly DNA and, from whence you came in that particular vein. So I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of explore both of them. And I sort of played around with it a little bit, not that much. I mean, I found a second cousin, and I think recently I found a first cousin. So I thought I would look at both pieces. So I'm going to look at the people who raised me and see if I can't track where they came from and find the paper trail like Henry Louis Gates finds. So I did that recently and got stuck, and then some other things showed up. So I'm pursuing that. So my mother's family and my father's family, the ones who raised me, I found some documents, and I remember some names, and I looked those up and found them, marriage certificates and death certificates and so on. And then the other side is, what is my DNA? What is that story telling me about the parts of the world that my people came from and so on. So I started looking again at it more carefully. I want to say not that long ago, maybe 6 or 7 months ago.
Okay.
And so I'm doing this. I was spending most of the time like on my mother's family and finding like her grandmother and etc. And I went back to the DNA and sort of it had recalibrated.
It does that on its own.
That. And yeah, and I looked up why, and I should have probably looked at that before we started to chat. But what they're doing is they're continuing to explore elements of DNA and where they come from. And so when you get your DNA results, they're not necessarily stuck. They will shift based on the process, the scientific iterations.
The more research they find, exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm. The more data they collect. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And even since then, they've shifted again. So this time, it was saying that I was 56% Northern European, 56.7. And now, and so 20% German, 20% Nigerian, and then a couple others. And again, I can look it up real fast. A bunch of 1% and 4%. And I think you just can group those all together.
Mm-hmm.
And
now, so we can put our own love story together, though, can't we? I already.
Yes, we could. Yes, we could. Absolutely, absolutely. But I have to say, I'm like, let me do this math again. So I put all the African on one side and and it kept coming out 56 point whatever. And I mean, I was shook.
Wow.
I was shook, and I'm less so now. But I was like, wait, I'm literally a white girl.
I know, right?
Literally. And I had a really hard time. It's funny because I watched, I think it was a Latina, and I want to say it was Eva Longoria. It might not have been her, but I think it was her. Someone who was like sure about them being a Mexican American. She was certain of who she was. And he did her DNA, and she was probably 35% Mexican. And she cried.
Whoa.
Because it wasn't who she thought she was, and it wasn't her experience of who she was. And I have, on occasion shed a tear about what? Really? And so I've decided, though, over the course of these months, after it has settled, to really embrace the part of me that I didn't think was as prevalent as it is. Now, I do have to say, the 20% Nigerian makes me super happy.
And please, can it stay? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, don't go down. It actually went up. It was 14%,
Okay.
then it went to 17%. Now it's 20 point something percent. I'm like, oh, it's going up. That's
Okay, come on, right.
Yeah. So I want to embrace that first, and I want to understand more about, because 20% is a lot.
That's well, I haven't did much work around the DNA conversation. I have my whole, my conspiracy theory thing. But the more I talk to people, the more I'm interested in what they're finding, and even the so go ahead and talk, because I want to hear more, because I have my little 2 cents, but I want to
Yeah, well, I definitely want your 2 cents. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to keep doing the paper trail for my mother and father who raised me, but I'm going to start with the Nigerian piece and see from there, where did they land in the United States? I did find a first cousin. We believe we're first cousins, and her tree is several hundred people. And she called me a couple of weeks ago and said that she thinks I'm on her mother's tree and not necessarily on her father's tree. So I'm going to take a look at that tree and see what I can figure out. But I would like to know more about Nigerian culture, because and the interesting thing is, I discovered WizKid, as you know, when we were in Jamaica, and I didn't know he was from Nigeria. And I'm absolutely in love with his music.
Right.
And I mean, I know it's popular Nigerian music. It's not, traditional, but I'd like to explore more of that as well. So I'm going to take each piece and look carefully and probably do some writing about it, because I think it informs some aspects of me, certainly. I really feel like my grounding is in the raising, how I was raised and how I grew up, and my worldview comes from there. My value system comes from there. My belief system comes from the people who raised me. Mm-hmm. Now I have evolved it from when I was a child, obviously, but the foundation is certainly from that. So there's nothing I think that I could find in my DNA that would shift that. Right. But I do think that there are probably aha moments that I could uncover as I explore the regions from whence my ancestors actually came.
So are your parents still alive? The ones who nurtured you?
Mm-mm.
Wow. So you began this work after they had passed on.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because my mother was born in Dallas, and she was telling me some stories one day. She was a super interesting, very artistic, beautifully compassionate woman. And she was telling me some stories, and I said, Mama, you should, write your story down. You should write it down. And I was so surprised. She took it very much to heart, and she freehand wrote 205 pages of her story. And I had read maybe the first 10 pages of it. And so probably a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I'm like, you know what? I owe it to her to read this.
Yes. Were you fascinated inside of those 10 pages?
Yeah. And I don't know really why I put it aside, but so I obviously kept it, and I took it to make copies. And the paper was so old, and sort of, they're like, he said, I had to stand here one at a time and make copies, and it's going to cost you $80. So I can bind it for you. Yeah. So I'll do that myself at some point. So he bound it. Mm-hmm. And so it's a book, and I read it. I mean, I did stop a couple times and go, ooh, Mama. No, you did. No, you did not. And there's so many conversations I want to have with her now, after I read that because she was a bit of a firecracker.
Wow.
Yes, yes. And some of the names in the stories that she told in her writing helped me remember, oh, and Creasy. And then I went and looked up Creasy Johnson and found her, and she had signed the death certificate for my mother's father, who died when he was 23.
Oh.
And I don't know if he was ever like really in her life. And I can't find a marriage certificate for him and her mother. But I found a draft card for him, and he actually didn't go to the draft or go to the war because he had a wife and child. That was the reason for not going to the war. He had a wife and child, but there's no marriage certificate. So I don't know if they were ever legally married. But those are some very interesting just tidbits in the story, that her story that she wrote, and then what I found on Ancestry really did align.
And you have no idea what else you're gonna find in those the 190 pages you have left to read.
I read the whole thing.
And so now you know that piece.
Yes, I read the whole thing. And interestingly enough, she stopped when my father died, which
Oh,
what I know about that time frame was like that freed her to be kind of the woman she wanted to be.
after
But
he died?
yeah, yeah. I mean, he was an alcoholic, and they didn't really have like they had more of a brother sister kind of
How old
relationship.
were you at that time when he?
Oh, I was in college when he died.
Okay, so it was just the two of them when you, yeah, at that time. Was it just the two of them, or did you have other siblings?
I have a brother. He's in Texas, and so my brother. The story is that the couple who had me. So my mother was white, according to the story that I have.
Right.
And my father was, I was born at Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha. So maybe he was in the Air Force, I don't know. But the story was that they had my brother first, and she was at the university, and she was a prodigy, supposedly, a piano prodigy. And her
Whoa.
parents, and this was in the middle of the century.
Yes.
And so her parents did not allow her to keep his child. That's the story I got. So supposedly she had my brother first. They didn't let her keep him. And then she had me. I'm like, nah, something wrong with that story. Come on now. No, you have one child, you have to give him up, and then you go have another child with the same man, and they make you give him up too. So I didn't quite. So I've asked my brother to take a DNA test, and he's not interested. Now, here's an interesting point. I don't look like my brother at all. We don't look alike.
Is he your complexion or is he darker?
He's about your color, maybe just a little bit lighter.
Okay.
But he has a daughter, and I have a son, and they are Moot Angie, they're about her color, both of them. They both have like hazel eye. They look like twins.
Oh.
Our children look like twins.
So the DNA passed you all and went to them.
Very possibly. If the story of us really being brother and sister are true, he will not take the test. So only way I can validate that is to have my niece take the test, which of course she would do. And I haven't asked her to do that yet.
Now, how old is she? Is she older?
She's 40.
Oh yeah, so she's old enough to make that decision
Yeah.
for herself. Oh, this is so fascinating. Oh my goodness. Okay, so so can I ask what is his reason for not wanting to find out or take the test?
Well, and he said, I'm not interested in that DNA stuff. And I'm like, I'm not asking you to be interested in it. I'm asking you to just take the test. I'll pay for it and send me the results. And then he didn't respond anymore. So he's just not going to do it.
Yeah, got it.
No,
Okay.
I can't speak to what his rationale or reasons or motivations are, but he's not going to.
Wow. Okay, so now this is deep. So now where do you go?
Where do I go? Well, I mean, in terms of, I'm going to continue to pursue the paper trail on the folks who raised me. My father, who raised me, I found his mother,
Mm-hmm.
the mother who raised him, because
He was adopted too?
So the story he tells is, and she's in West Virginia, and then also her husband was in West Virginia. The story he tells is that he was with his parents, and he didn't look like my father. He looked like an Italian man with wavy black hair. He could have definitely been my father based on just his physical attributes, but he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
The story is that he was a little kid, and I've got one picture of him around here somewhere where he looks like such a sad little child. And the Ku Klux Klan came through the town in West Virginia and tore it up or burnt it down. And he was the child of a mixed race couple. And
Mm.
they either, who knows what happened to his parents, but they took him. And there was a black bus driver, a Continental bus driver, who was driving through, and I guess they either gave him to him or he said, "Give me that child, don't hurt that child," something like that. And he took my father home. Now, my father, again, very light, black, wavy hair. And the guy who took him home was heavy and dark. And the woman he lived with, Annie Garrett, also a dark-skinned woman. He drove a bus across the country, or at least in the eastern states. My father told the story that when he would drive the bus, leave, and he'd be gone for, days at a time, she would put him on the porch and make him sleep on the porch and not come in the house while he was gone, because she didn't like him because it was colorism. He was light skinned. So my father was traumatized as a baby, as a very little bitty boy. And then when she knew he was coming home, she would bring him in the house and act
So,
like
so, so the father never knew that this child was being ostracized
yeah,
while he was gone because
right.
she pretended to probably take care of him. She pretended to nurture him.
Yes, she did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she did. And so finding like though I found the two of them, but there's no way I could find like his birth parents without his DNA. And he's long gone. And I don't know what I would get from that anyway, because it's not my DNA. But so I think that I probably won't get beyond the people who raised him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what the point would be to that. So that paper trail has ended. So I'm going to focus on my mother's side of the family, just to understand the people who raised me, who nurtured me, who really grew me into who I am, who those people are and where they came from.
Yes, and those are the people that raised you. But if you go to the mother in your DNA, how did you find out she was a child prodigy? Where was is that inside of your research, or is that inside of?
That is a story. That's the narrative that my mother told me that she learned when she went to adopt me. The only thing that I have to validate that is when I was a little girl, and I wasn't really interested in the piano, but she had heard this story and she bought me a piano. I mean, spent her hard-earned money to buy me a piano. Got it when I was 12. But prior to that, I was taking piano lessons. And all the piano teachers who taught me did not charge her, because they said I was so talented. They just wanted to teach me how to play. And I was like, I don't really care about this piano. And you have to practice an hour a day, and I would put the clock on the thing so I could watch it for 1 hour, and then I could get out and go outside and do something else. So I must have been talented because no one made her pay them.
It's true, and that's usually how they treat prodigies or treat people who have genuine genius and talent with instruments.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or
So
even
I will say I blew that, because I mean, I can't sit down now and play a piece without music in front of me. So I didn't really, I don't know if I believed it, but I just didn't, it wasn't part of something that I didn't feel passionate about it.
But can you read music?
Oh yeah, I can read music. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. So, and I remember, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, I remember sending myself to Corpus Christi school that was on, what was it, on 50, 47th, 48th in King Drive. I would go at 8 o'clock in the morning for piano lessons. I
Mm-hmm.
would pay for it myself. Now, nobody at home could care less if I played piano, but I just, for some reason, wanted to learn how to play piano. But I didn't have a piano at home to practice on. And
Mm-hmm.
so every week when I would come back to my piano lessons, the nun would slap my hand. You didn't practice. Well, what I did was I had made a cardboard, uh, thing of piano keys.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would practice on that, but you don't have any sound.
Right.
So I'm practicing playing the keys. I know with C and D, and I know A, G, F. I know how to play.
Right.
You know, and she would hit me on my hand, and I think after the fourth lesson, I'm thinking I'm not gonna keep paying you to hit me.
That is, you really wanted to learn though. See, that's the
I
difference between us.
Yes, I really wanted to learn, but by me not having a piano at home, there was you. I didn't. It didn't connect to me that I needed to hear. I'm thinking, I know what A, I know what an A is, I know what a C, I know D, I know how to play the scale on my little cardboard keyboard.
Bless your heart.
But I always thought that in my later years I would get some training to become a piano player. And maybe that's something that you should take on. It would probably come so natural, Leilani.
I have said that. I mean, I actually had that piano that I got when I was 12. She bought me a piano, and I think that I gave it away. I don't think I gave it away. I gave it away probably 4 years ago.
Oh,
Yes, and I was looking because it didn't fit in with my living room, as you can see my living room. It was on that wall where the dude Bucktown Prince is, that painting.
yeah.
It was along that wall, and it just didn't fit in with like my new furniture coming in. I'm like, I don't play it. No way. Let me get this piano to somebody who's gonna play it. So I gave it to a young lady who, it's funny too, a funny story, because she sent her brother and her husband up here to get it. I'm like, y'all can't take that piano down 47 stairs. They thought they were gonna lift it up. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna. First of all, no. And they tried, I'm like, let's let us try it. I'm like, go ahead. They couldn't even like budget. Of course not. They were little short dudes. So she had somebody, but she had hurt her wrist, or she had carpal tunnel, and she took many months to repair and have strong enough wrists. And she wanted to start playing again. And she was a real extraordinary piano player. So I wanted somebody who would respect it and appreciate it and really use it. So I gave it to her, and I felt good about that.
Yeah, and she loved it, and she really did appreciate it.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah,
that's an amazing gift to have.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope I've sparked an interest though in you to go ahead and get some
Well,
lessons.
I think you should get some lessons.
It wouldn't surprise me at all.
I mean, we can learn whatever we want. The first thing I want to do, though, in terms of learning, is actually what I did love was French. And I was really good at it in high school and really great at it in college. And I've let it fade. And I believe that that muscle will come back quickly. So, you know, we can go to Saint Martin, or we can go to Paris. But
Well, I want you to know that I did do 4 years of French in high school, and I was really good at it, and I
yeah,
could read French.
yes.
And then when I did go to Paris, all I could remember was how to speak Spanish. And then when I went to Mexico, for some reason, I couldn't even remember Spanish. It was
That is funny.
so funny. But yes. And we could do a French parlor where we would call and talk to each other, and we could only speak in French.
Yes, yes. There's a course here in town in Evanston, and at work we have like a stipend. And I called them. I'm like, I got this money. I would like to take a class, and they never like really called me back. But I'm gonna find someone to teach me to because I know that I know that it'll come back to me.
Yeah, and they maybe they didn't call because of the COVID thing, and maybe
It was during
now,
COVID.
yeah,
Yeah,
it may be,
yeah.
they may be getting re-energized and starting
Hmm.
classes again. So that would be,
Yeah. So I'm gonna do something like that for sure.
that's wonderful. So now that you have this, it's so interesting, the whole white girl thing, has that changed you in any way of the Leilani that I've been knowing all these years?
No, it really hasn't.
No.
It really hasn't. It was in my head. And everyone that I've shared the story with is like, that's just in your head. You
Well,
like,
it's so funny. We did use you to get some passes when we were in Jamaica.
yes,
Like,
yes.
can you put your white girl thing on this, please?
And go on up there and do that. It's funny, like I was having this conversation with some people at work. We have an ERT, a Black Better Uppers group. And we were talking about ancestry and identity, and I was leading that discussion. And I told the story, and one brother was like, "Well, now you can get a loan with a better interest rate."
Girl.
I know.
Well, I don't know. You'd have. I think if you threw on a wig, maybe.
Yeah, it's like that's not gonna work. That's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be what it is. I'm just better count on my credit score to help me with that.
Well, but then the credit score improves just because your identity
I
changes.
know. It's true. It's true.
They
It's
have,
unfortunately the truth.
unfortunately, but
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we can laugh about this because we know that this is the society in which we live. It has nothing to do with who we are.
Right.
And
Right.
maybe one day they'll catch up. I don't know if we'll still be here, but
Yeah, no, not in our lifetime, but
but I
ultimately,
don't know. I don't know, Lay, because I was just saying to someone, I believe yesterday, that I feel like a lot of people have caught up to where I am. The whole thing about breastfeeding, and I was a vegetarian. No, people weren't vegetarians in
yes.
my family. People weren't breastfeeding in my family.
Right.
People weren't studying about themselves. And now look, people are, I mean,
True.
people are conscious. They're
Yeah.
watching what they eat, and I'm not saying 90%. I'm not
A
looking at
lot though, a lot. You're
a
right.
lot more than what we grew up with.
Absolutely. And I also believe that if you look at your children and my children, because they're in the same age range, my child
Yep.
is 32 and
Yep.
your baby is 26. And
Right.
these are conscious young people.
Oh
They
man.
are about certain things in a way that we weren't about them. They are about sustainability. They are about eating healthy. They are about working their bodies. They're about justice. And they're serious.
And they're not about slavery and long hours at the office.
They
Okay.
don't play that. No, they
They're
don't.
like, you are not taking my life
No,
at
no, no,
work.
no. They
I'm
look at
gonna
work
build your
very
empire
differently than we looked at
very
work.
differently.
It's a good
I was
thing.
I was with a group of them yesterday having a meal, and I want you to know, talking with them, actually, I was just like, wow, this
Mhm.
is the most beautiful conversation, and they was just really so high and so conscious, and they were telling me stuff, and I say, really, you know that too?
Yeah,
They're not
yeah,
so fooled by this
it's
stuff,
fascinating.
right?
Yeah.
They're not caught up in
And
this
it gives me
stuff.
hope,
It gives
it makes me more hopeful than I would have been if they were a generation that didn't have millennials, and is it Z or X, the ones that come after millennials, they're all very conscious and things are shifting, absolutely.
Well, look, don't ask me because I can't. And I think I have a child in each generation. All I do is let them teach me. That's all. It's like I
Yeah.
can't keep it straight.
I mean, the person I've learned the most from in this world is absolutely my child.
Yes. I had an amazing conversation with my eldest, and I don't talk to him as much as I used to because he's a father with four children. But
Mhm.
when we talk, I mean, it's just like talking to my buddy, and he just giving me, and again, that depth,
Yeah.
and he'll be like, hold up, Ma, but if you look at it like this and this, I said, and just insightful.
Hmm. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yes. And I remember thinking I couldn't talk to adults when I was growing up.
No. Mm-mm. It was a whole different thing.
Yeah, your opinion here has no weight, doesn't matter.
No. But
Actually,
you remember, see, children should be seen and not heard.
get out of my face. Okay.
In hindsight, so debilitating potentially to a child, like taking their voice. And
Yeah.
now you can go too far, they can have too much voice. But I think all children should be able to like have voice.
Well, we're starting to see that now. And actually, because that next generation, like our children, I told my children, I learned how to have a voice through them. I
Mhm.
learned from them. I didn't have a voice. I probably was almost 50 before I realized how powerful my speaking was. Although prior
Wow.
to that, I was still doing some things, but it was mostly inside of finding myself.
Mhm.
But my children, I mean, they're respectful. You know what I'm saying? So they
Mhm.
don't, and then they're not, well, sometimes my daughter gets
Right. Every now and then they go a little sideways.
Every now and then I gotta hang up the phone. Let's reset, right? However, some of the children nowadays, the younger, they've gotten way too far. They've gone way too far, and they
Hmm.
have to bring it back in because the respect level has went away.
Well, and that is a parental issue.
That's a parental issue. Yeah.
Because yeah, you can't let them say and do anything and everything and question you, etc. Now, I do recall saying, okay, what do you have to say? I will listen. Say it in the way that so I can hear you, and then I'm gonna make the choice. And if he had a good argument, or because sometimes he was, came up with things that I didn't think, I'm like, okay, you're right about that, and I'm going to acquiesce and allow you to do that based on the conversation we just had. But you're not going to come up in here and be like, and think you're going to get somewhere.
As a matter of fact, if you come up in here like that, you're absolutely getting
Yeah.
nothing,
You
not
blew
even a
your
conversation.
opportunity.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but that's how I actually did my children too. I actually allowed them to give me the other side, but and I also tried to say yes as much as possible.
Yeah.
If it wasn't life threatening, if it wasn't, I wasn't about controlling. I wasn't about you had
No,
to
freedom.
But when I said no, you take my no like my yes,
Yes.
because I've thought about it, I've considered it, and so I had in doing that, I taught them to trust me,
Mm-hmm.
so they knew that I was solid in that because a lot of parents just say no to everything.
Yes. And that's ridiculous.
No,
Or
no,
yes
no,
to everything. And either
or
one.
yes to everything, or try to give them everything. I was like, oh no, you won't get any name brand from me. You wearing Payless? Remember Payless? I'm going to pay less. And when if you get older and you work for what you want, but it taught them a value
Mhm.
different from I got to have things to make me feel valuable. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm concerned about now is our young people actually think they identify with their stuff
Hmm.
as being who they are when taken
That's
away,
not.
then who are you?
Yeah. Back to identity. Got nothing to do with your stuff.
Nothing to do with your stuff.
Hmm.
And also, I think what you've demonstrated too is who you are really doesn't have anything to do with who other people say you are.
Oh, not nothing. Yes.
So all those percentages about, although it's interesting to look at and research and gain more, because I do want to hear about your European family, So, but that's because that romantic in me wants to make up about this prodigy white girl, young girl that what? How prodigy you? What, a teenager usually?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And she meets this army guy,
Air Force.
like Marine, okay, Air Force guy, and and they just end up talking, and then, but two children.
It's kind of unlikely. I feel like it's unlikely, but like I said, our kids are literally, I mean, they look so much alike. If you stand them together, you think they're brother and sister. So I don't know the story there, but you're making me think that, I mean, I was going to write about it from a personal perspective, like the story of me. And I thought I might actually call it "Me Come Soon."
Me home soon.
Me come soon.
Me
Because
come
that's what
soon.
Jamaican say. I was like, me come soon. I don't know who me is, but me come soon. But it might be more interesting as a novel. I don't know. But so it's just swirling around in my head at the moment. I do think it's interesting. I think I'm curious about it. It hasn't impacted my definition of me
No.
because I'm pretty damn clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's interesting and I'm curious about it.
And I can actually see like like a series, like at least a sequel, like three,
Mm-hmm.
like when they first meet, all of that, hiding and whatever that fall
Mm-hmm.
in love, that
Some of that had to go on.
some of that went on. And
Yeah.
I don't mind that you had two because I do know I did. I had a childhood friend. I believe she got pregnant at 14, and her parents sent her away and made her give that baby up, and she went right back to the same guy and got pregnant
Really?
again.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Okay, so I guess it could be.
Yeah, because she was, when you're young, it's like love is so,
Overpowering.
oh my God. And that's all you're living for, especially inside a family where there is no love, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
so you're like, this is all, and I have to hold on to this person. And if this person has any sense of going away, the one thing that you do is what? Have a child so that
wow.
they're with you forever.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I never looked at it that way.
Yeah. So I do know she kept that one. Because that
Mm,
was 15, so had to give the first one up at 14, but at 15 she had the next one.
mm,
You know.
interesting.
Yeah. So I think that that is a very compelling reason why he could be your brother, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then that's the first book.
Yeah.
And then the second book is like his story, maybe a little bit of your brother's story. Because the adoption takes place, and now you're living in your family. And then the third one is your story and discovery. Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's pretty
Oh.
fascinating. It really is. It's got me curious, that's for sure.
I would love to see that. And I'm speaking to you like this because I know you as the writer.
Mhm. I know. I do. I'm going to write something. I haven't decided exactly what it is yet, but I have to. It just like is bouncing off the inside of my head.
So, for people who are in this conversation of identity and maybe wanting to look like you did, and here's the question: would you have gotten that DNA kit for yourself?
I think eventually I would have.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He just beat me to the punch. Yeah, he's with a girl. He married her now, and they were sort of exploring for themselves. And he did it, and then the next thing I know, he had sent me one. But eventually, I would have done that. Yes.
Yeah. So then, what would you tell the people who are considering that? How would you encourage them? Would you not encourage them?
I would because I mean, if you have a sense of self already, I think one or the other. If you have a sense of self, it's not going to shake you from who you know you are.
Yeah.
If you don't have one, it could very well help you create your sense of self in a more defined way. I don't think that I mean, it's only interesting. It's only something that you can learn from. I mean, there are stories that people hear about some of their ancestors that are just terrible and awful. And yes, you came from there, but that doesn't make you that. I think that if you have an interest in it, absolutely, I would recommend doing it just for the sake of it's just exploration.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has haunted me is because on my birth certificate, where father's name would normally be, it
Mhm.
says legally omitted.
Mm,
And I have talked to a few people that said a lot of children that were born in the county hospital during my era, that there were quite a few children whose father's name were legally omitted. So I would have to try to find out what were the circumstances
mhm.
where they would do that,
Right.
because otherwise my search stops there
Yeah. Yeah. With that side, certainly.
with that side.
Mhm.
However, maybe doing the DNA, they may find somebody in
Mm.
my hierarchy.
Yeah, I think the fun of it is, and the interesting thing about it is, there's always something new. It might be a month, it might be 2 months from now, it might be 3 months, but there'll be like something that shows up. And I think it's probably wise if you're serious about it, not you, but if one is serious about it, to do not just ancestry, but to do 23andMe. And then if there's another, and if you really want to be like, I'm just going to explore myself, but if you want to be super focused about it, you can pay really, really skilled individuals to do searches of both DNA and, to find out who you were, that kind of stuff. And I don't know how much that costs, but they are excellent at the paper trail and all of that. And where I'm just poking around trying to look for clues inside of Ancestry. I do think I'm going to do 23andMe and see if they match up.
Mm-hmm.
And then explore that to some degree too.
But I do have my conspiracy theory thing.
Yeah, so you want to share?
Well, I just know that the creators of that company, 23andMe,
Hmm.
um, um, they're they are related to or in business with uh, what's the girls that was Epstein's
Oh, Ghislaine or Ghislaine.
Elaine? Yeah, that's her sisters
Oh,
or
is it?
something, or they're connected and so they there was something about them getting information that could do something with your DNA. I don't
That
know.
gives me pause. Yeah, that gives me pause.
So I was just like, yeah, I ain't giving y'all my
Yeah, I might not
but
do
if they wanted to clone us, which that's a whole nother
that.
conversation.
Yes, it
What was
is.
going on in Ukraine, really, and so you just wonder, where do they get the DNA from to create other entities, right?
Hmm.
And are we volunteering it? So, but I don't know if that concerns me or not, because I'm at this point where I'm going to live my life
Regardless.
regardless.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's like sometimes you can just know too much.
yes. And so that just have to move on.
You just move on. It's like, I'm not going to let my knowledge stifle
Yeah.
my curiosity or, my ability to process, okay, well, what's beyond that? What's
Hmm.
beyond that? And what's beyond that? And that's what you're saying. You're
Hmm.
saying, I'm going to look, just until it gets so far to the end that I don't find anything.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really it really is like a big puzzle, and so just like finding pieces to the puzzle. Oh, this is an interesting piece. Does it fit over here? This is an interesting piece. Maybe it fits here. And if it doesn't, even though it's a real puzzle piece, if it doesn't fit my knowledge of self, the impact on me is nominal, if any. I mean, admittedly, like I said before, I was shook, and
Yeah.
that's because my experience was something different. And it's like, oh, that's not what I am. And but who cares?
Yeah, and I think you had to go through that to get to who
Oh,
cares.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Because it was just like I remember. I think when we were in Jamaica, you said to me, "Man, when I saw that I was this white girl, I was just like, whoa."
Oh, wait, hold up, hold
And
up.
I'm like looking at you like, well, when I met you, I think your locks were like much longer than that now, right? So you were full-fledged white girl to me.
Yeah.
I mean, black girl, not white
Right,
girl.
right, right, right.
You were. I didn't see, and that's because I know that we have a spectrum of color, in because my family, I'm considered dark in my family.
Oh, wow.
You talk about colorism. I was the black child.
Wow. And yeah, you're medium brown skin.
Okay, but you know how dark I get in the sun.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and I get dark pretty quick.
Yeah.
So when I was little, I stayed in the sun, and they would call me Blackie and all that. So I get it now, but then I didn't get it, and everybody else was your complexion.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow bone, right?
Yep,
Red
yep.
bone.
Red bones.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So very cool. So, Leilani, so if there are people that would like to get in touch with you, just to be encouraged to do this work, how can they find you? Are you on social media?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm on Instagram, and I got kicked off of Instagram. Not kicked off, but my email got messed up, and I'm not sure. I think it's LAHHNEE, Lonnie.
LAHNNE.
Let me get it correct. It's LAHHNEE. E.
Okay.
And then I'm also on LinkedIn in my full name.
Okay. I think we're friends on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, but I don't think we're friends on Instagram. Okay, great. Thank you. And then, what would you, anything else, any final words? And I just want you to know I've appreciated you taking time. You know, your story was so fascinating to me, and we had such a great time just nurturing and sharing each other with each other in Jamaica. I just wanted to introduce you to my listeners.
I am grateful for the opportunity to share and grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. Yeah, just it feels good. We all can learn. And I mean the I think as a final word, I would just say it's really important. I don't know that I believe the old adage that says you if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. I don't think I believe that. I think you can chart your own path of where you're going, no matter where you start. Because you may never, the fact of the matter is, as human beings, we don't know where we came from.
Oh, girl, cause we listen. That's a whole nother conversation.
And
Come
so
on.
we have no idea. Something knows, somebody, something knows, but we don't really know. We have no idea how we got here. So you can chart your own path, even if you don't know where you came from. And so I would just say, develop a sense of self for yourself. Know what you care about. Have a value system that you feel strongly about and that you bring to your words, to your actions, to the people in your circle. That's what's important. What you believe about yourself, what you know about yourself, and what you share with the people you love and the people you encounter. Decide who you want to be in this world. Nobody else has to tell you that. You get to choose who you want to be in this world. So wherever you came from, choose who you want to be, nurture that, grow that, and then share that with the rest of us.
Yeah, that's yes. All of that is so wonderful. Thank you. And I just want to also extend an invitation to you if you ever think of a topic or something else you'd like to share on this this platform, and I do have a couple of other places, just let me know. And then after you write that book, come back and
I will. I will. I will. And I do have a couple other topics we would have some fun talking about. So
yeah,
we'll
we would have some fun. Yes, you are welcome to come back. I'm always here, and I just love introducing my friends, to my listening audience. And sometimes I say, even if it's only one person listening, you never know the difference that you can make, and then how they can go and influence someone else. So
I agree. I agree completely. It's like really been my pleasure.
thank you. It's been my pleasure too. And that is it for this session of Patiently Waiting for Nothing. And I am excited to let everyone know that next week we have again Samir Ali. And this time we're talking about how to activate the 19 codes of behavior in relationships. This brother is going deep and he's loving this topic. So as long as he keeps bringing the heat, I'm going to keep inviting him back. So until then, keep patiently waiting. See you soon. Good night, everyone. Bye, Lay.